This is not how it happened, not in the way the title insists. That version circulates because it satisfies an appetite. Clean lines, decisive force, a body count that balances a loss. People prefer a jungle that goes silent to a room that stays noisy with doubt. I learned about my brother's death the way everyone does now, on a screen, compressed and repeated until it loses its edges. Someone had edited it to make a point. It was meant for me even if my name wasn't spoken. The message came after, efficient as a receipt, he tried to sue us. You messed up with the wrong one. The sender knew my position. That's why the words were chosen the way they were. Authority is an address you don't need to look up. I run a school. Not a war, not a vendetta. A school. We teach people how to move through uncertainty without turning it into theater. We teach them to wait. Waiting is harder than action, and less flattering. When the rumor started, it borrowed my job title and my grief and assembled them into a fantasy. 40 rookies. Only knives. A diploma measured in blood. I heard it from a journalist first, then from a colleague who asked carefully if I wanted it denied. I didn't. Denials make myths hungry. What I did instead was smaller and harder to describe. I reported the message. I stepped back from instruction for a cycle. I sat through meetings where my brother's name appeared only as a line item under security considerations. I learned the difference between evidence and vengeance all over again. People say the jungle went silent because silence photographs well. In reality, the place where my brother died stayed loud with insects and engines and ordinary commerce. Criminal organizations don't erase themselves overnight, and institutions don't unmake them with symbolism. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. At the school, students noticed my absence. They always do. Authority leaves a vacuum even when it tries not to. One of them asked me later if it was true, if I'd sent them somewhere and told them to come back with proof. I asked what proof would mean to them. They shrugged. Closure. Closure is a word people reach for when they don't want to say permission. I told them no. I told them the truth that doesn't trend. That grief does not grant jurisdiction. That a uniform is not a moral override. That you don't graduate from loss by making someone else fail. The stories persisted anyway. A student handed me a bag in one version. In another, I nodded. In a third, I said nothing at all. Each teller adjusted the scene to fit their need for me to be either terrifying or righteous. Both are convenient masks. What actually happened after the video is less cinematic. There were investigations that moved at the speed of bureaucracy. There were names that surfaced and names that didn't. There were nights when I replayed the message, not to harden myself, but to understand what it wanted from me. Fear? Performance? A mistake? The boss who sent it expected a reaction he could measure. That expectation is the oldest trap. Power likes mirrors. I refused to provide one. Weeks later, a different message arrived, not from him but from an intermediary, asking politely if there would be consequences. That politeness mattered. It meant the calculation had changed. Silence, used correctly, is not emptiness. It's pressure without spectacle. At the school, we resumed. Training looks boring when it's ethical. We taught navigation. We taught accountability. We taught how to write reports that stand up in rooms where no one wants to hear them. We taught the difference between rumor and record. A student stayed after one evening and asked if restraint ever feels like surrender. It feels like work, I said, and it never finishes. They nodded, dissatisfied. I recognized that look. I've worn it. There were consequences I can't describe without breaking confidences, and there were none that anyone could point to and say there. That's the risk you take when you refuse theater. People mistake the absence of spectacle for the absence of action. My brother is still dead. That fact did not change because I wanted it to. Some nights, I imagine the version where the jungle goes silent, because imagination is where the body puts what it can't metabolize yet. In the morning, I choose again. The myth will outlive me. It already has. It gives people a story where grief converts cleanly into dominance and the ledger balances by sunrise. It gives them a man who nods and confirms. I am not that man. I am the one who stayed, who kept a school from becoming a shrine, who learned Again, that restraint is not mercy's opposite, but its discipline. If you need a diploma, I can offer one. It won't have a head on it. It will have a name, correctly spelled, and a date that means nothing to anyone but you. That is the only graduation I recognize.